This is the Rage Fury MAXX, simultaneously ATI's oddest and perhaps its coolest graphics card ever produced. It was also a massive disappointment. This is Pixel Pipes. NVIDIA will do strange things to its competitors when they're performing well. And when the GeForce 256 came out, they were performing well. Damn well. ATI had aspirations to be one of their biggest competitors, but had literally nothing that could compete with the awesome power of the world's first GPU. So they got desperate.
In the year prior, 3DFX had released the venerable Voodoo 2, a card ridiculously fast on its own that only further distanced its lead when combined with a second card, a technology they called Scanline Interleave. I can only imagine the team at ATI looking at this neat trick and thinking to themselves, gee, we could do that. Take two graphics cards that underperform, slap them together on a single graphics card, hopefully doubling the performance, and call it your new flagship. You have the Rage Fury MAXX. Aside from a rare dual Voodoo 2 card released by Quantum 3D in 1998 called the Obsidian X24, this is the first official dual accelerator card released directly from an IHV. Famously developed under the name Project Aurora after the Roman goddess of dawn, it launched in December of 1999, the same month the DDR version of the GeForce 256 made its debut. The card uses two flagship Rage 128 Pro chips, which later became known as the Rage Fury Pro, hence the name Rage Fury MAXX, with two X's, just so you know it means business. They each render every other frame, the first implementation of what's known today as AFR, or alternate frame rendering. With each chip sporting two pixel pipes, the card effectively has 4 total, and while the card only has SDR memory, the dual 128-bit memory pass to each chip effectively gives this card the same bandwidth as standard DDR of the time. In a way, that makes this the first card with a 256-bit memory interface. The card comes clocked at well, that's actually a bit tricky. Most websites list the core clock at 125 MHz and memory at 143 MHz. Tom's Hardware reported that the released versions of the card come at 135 MHz core, 155 MHz memory. My card, as well as Phil's card from Phil's Computer Lab, is read by PowerStrip at just 118 MHz core and 140 MHz on the memory. It has no problem clocking at the speeds suggested by Tom's Hardware, however. In 3D Mark 2000, you can see the Rage Fury MAXX shows some very good optimization here, at 4,527, almost doubling the score of the single Rage Fury Pro. The score gets close to the slowest Radeon, but it's still leagues behind the next-gen DDR cards. In 3D Mark 2001, you can see what happens when you run a test created after driver development for the Fury MAXX has ceased. While there's some minor improvement, the jump over the Rage Fury Pro is fairly weak, and graphical errors were present in the car chase tests. Quake 3 shows a fantastic gain in frame rate over the Rage Fury Pro, turning a modest 28.5 frames per second into a robust 46.3. You can also see the most dramatic jump in performance between generations, with the slowest Radeon pulling out 48% faster. Even still, the numbers here are deceptive, as the MAXX was not playable with this game, with horrible stuttering motion. This is another pitfall of the MAXX, as even when it works and the frame rate seems great, you may still have crippling issues that prevent a game from being played well. The two accelerators have to be in perfect harmony, with good frame pacing and precise timing of the alternating frames being rendered. Otherwise, you might have micro-stuttering, or in this case, macro-stuttering, or juddering if you prefer. The card visibly received multiple revisions in its short life. Some have a socketed BIOS chip and a jumper near the rear of the card which disables one of the chips, turning it into a Rage Fury Pro. Other cards have a removable BIOS chip but no jumpers. My card has a permanently soldered BIOS chip and no jumpers. It also says made in China, dated 2000, while some say 1999 with perhaps the earliest ones labeled made in Canada. All this may partly explain some of the confusion over clock speeds of the card, as different revisions may come at different specifications, a bit frustrating to say the least. Going back to the benchmarks, we see the original Unreal Tournament is another very well optimized game, being one of the foremost benchmark titles at the time of release for the Rage Fury MAXX. It even squeaks past the SDR Radeon, which is an amazing feat. I did experience micro-stuttering in this game though, which was far more subtle than in Quake 3, but nonetheless made the frame rate feel lower than it actually was. This was resolved completely when switching to 16-bit color mode. And in our first racing game tested at Pixel Pipes, we see Need for Speed High Stakes, the fourth entry in the series released in 1999, shows a massively impressive frame rate for the Fury MAXX, beating all other cards on this list by landslide, which is astounding. The frame rate seems oddly low on the Radeon cards, and this is after multiple clean installs of the drivers to rerun the tests. They perform about the same as the prior generation Rage Fury Pro, and with the MAXX more than doubling the frame rate, all other cards aren't even close. The GeForce 256 failed to start the game despite all effort, so it turns in a failing grade here. Our last benchmark is Expendable, another important title back in the day, and the MAXX once again more than doubles the frame rate of the Rage Fury Pro, and matches the performance of the SDR Radeon. The DDR cards are still in their own club though. Examining the card, you can see that beneath the large Raging product stamp are traces that lead directly between both graphics chips and the AGP Edge connector. As far as I can tell, there are no connections between the two chips and no bridge chip to relay the data, meaning they both communicate straight to the chipset through the same AGP slot. This understandably leads to one of the biggest downfalls of the Fury MAXX: compatibility.
This is one of the most fickle graphics cards I've ever tried to work with. I went through 4 different motherboards before I finally found one that works with it. This super budget ECS motherboard here with Asus chipset was the first one that was actually compatible with it, and it was just something I had lying around. So I found a higher quality Asus board with a similar chipset on eBay, the A7S333. It works perfectly with the Rage Fury MAXX, and it's a solid motherboard to boot.
Then there's OS compatibility. This card will only work with Windows 95 and 98, thanks to their driver structure and ability to rapidly switch between graphics processors in a serial fashion over a single bus. When installed, the MAXX is seen as 2 separate graphics cards, complete with separate IRQs, and it's up to the driver, OS, and chipset to talk to and coordinate the 2 Rage chips so they can work together. It's a bizarre and extremely restrictive setup that spelled doom for the card's longevity.
You're really dealing with a lot if you want to try to use a Rage Fury MAXX. It's a card that has a tiny range of compatible motherboards, only works on Windows 98, and to top it all off, you're asking the 1999 era pre-Catalyst driver team at ATI, which was somewhat notorious back in the day, to tackle the dual chip rendering problem that's still a massive struggle nowadays with modern and more competent driver teams. You're going to have issues with it. I can't imagine what it was like back then when PC gamers were buying this card new and dealing with so many problems. Or worse, if people were buying it secondhand cheaply later on and finding out it didn't even work in modern OSs. If you weren't a total expert on diagnosing and troubleshooting computers, it was an absolute nightmare. It's no wonder that back in the day, ATI made a public apology and offered owners of the Rage Fury MAXX a refund or a trade-in towards the purchase of a new Radeon. Nowadays, it's a rare and expensive card, mostly a curiosity for collectors and graphics card history nerds like me. It's one of the first multi-core graphics cards, pioneered the use of alternate frame rendering, and is an interesting footnote in ATI's storied struggle to stay competitive against a much more successful giant. If you enjoyed my look at the Fury MAXX, hit that thumbs up and stick around for more videos coming very soon on graphics card relics like this one. Thanks for watching. I'm Nathan, and this has been Pixel Pipes.